We focus on the heart of the GLP-1 community. Real people, real stories, and the fight for affordable access. By listening, you are supporting our advocacy efforts to make these life-changing medications accessible to everyone who needs them. This isn't just a podcast, it's a movement. Welcome to the GLP-1 Collective.
Welcome to the GLP-1 Collective. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen. My name is Amanda Bonello, and today we're going to be interviewing Tappey Squires. He is a GLP-1 hero. He's going to be telling us all about his experiences, and he is our very first podcast interviewee. So he is forever going to be in our hearts and memory as a hero. Thank you, Tappey.
So can you tell me a little bit about yourself, and please start with your name?
My name's Tappey Squires. I'm based out of North Carolina, and I'm a pretty avid cyclist, as you've probably seen through the Zepbound athletes. I've been into that for quite a few years after getting out of kind of a hands-on construction-based job and working more in an office setting now. That's kind of what I do, and you know, all the spare time that I can get these days. I guess there's not much else to know about me. I'm outdoorsy, kind of work and go ride bikes kind of guy. So that's my big thing. Got some dogs and stuff that, you know, drive me crazy, but I love them. And I'm married and yeah.
I'm also a dog lover,
Yeah.
so I love this. I understand working an office job and not having the time to do much else. I totally get that.
Oh yeah.
So it's good you're cycling. How did you first hear about GLP-1 medications, and what led you to start taking them?
I think it was my mom called me one day, and even when I started cycling, right, I think I was probably the biggest I've ever been. So I was around 300 pounds at that time. I was still riding the bike, but just kind of still addicted to food. And that was kind of my crux, I guess you could say, to being able to eat the things that I wanted to eat and at the amount. And, my mom called me and she told me that, there was some new medications that were coming out. And my sister, I had not been given a diabetes diagnosis at the time, but my sister had started taking a GLP-1, and I kind of became interested in it. So at that point, kind of started talking with my doctor here in town and about getting blood markers done, right? And kind of seeing where I was at with a baseline. It's not something I did. I like to kind of put that out of my mind and not really think about it. And we did those blood markers, and they were really bad. At a dangerous point, right? So I think that kind of that drummed up some anxiety in me, and I knew that I kind of had to make a change. So working together with my primary care physician, he's kind of a nutritionist as well as a primary care doctor, we came up with a game plan to kind of set some goals on what kind of nutritional, whether it be supplementation or like dietary lifestyle changes to set in place. And then, when we hit a certain point when I found something that was relatively healthy that I could maintain, that we give the GLP-1s a try. And at that point, Zepbound had just become available, and we discussed it, and I had some anxiety around it. I think that a lot of people do, right? There was a lot of press that came up that was based around gastroparesis and a lot of these things that kind of stirred up some anxiety. Me being a naturally anxious person, I had a little bit of reluctance to give it a try, but I know I needed to do something, and I kind of put my trust in my physician as we kind of like built a relationship off of this, right? I mean, the first time I injected, and I had a total freak out, for like a full day, like panic attacks. But it kind of subsided, and just the next day, it was like this like this thing that like lived inside my head. It's like you've gotta like go, have a sweet or snack on something, even though you're not hungry. It just kind of like didn't exist. I was like, well, that's kind of weird. That like this thing overnight just kind of like left, and it was actually it was for pretty much everything for the first week or so. Was kind of a struggle to make sure I got enough caloric intake, right? Especially with a lot of outdoor activity. It was it's definitely a shock to the system. I've never experienced that in my life, right? And that's kind of like how I came to start the medication, and kind of the journey to beginning it, right? I think I had to like make a commitment and really kind of change my overall health and the way I look at health holistically versus looking at it kind of in a short term thing. And that was a year ago, that I started that. So, and I think I'm, as of this morning, like 150 pounds down. It's just like, it's kind of just unreal, to
Yeah.
over a year's time. It's really kind of shocking. And I'm cold a lot of the time now. I don't, like it's winter and I'm like, oh, I'm really cold. Maybe.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's been great, to be honest with you.
That's It's so relatable, I think. I think the first shot is probably really scary for most people. I know that I freaked out too.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
oh, this is actually an injection.
yeah. Never
But
had
yeah,
that
the
before.
food noise. Oh my gosh, the food noise. It's so freeing. I can't even.
It is. It is very freeing, and when you look at the scientific data behind it, right? A lot of like especially in the men's health sector, a lot of men take TRT because their testosterone levels are low. GLP-1 is really similar to that. It's an underactive, at least from my studies on it or the explanations been given to me. It's an underactive hormone, right? Your stomach emptying so fast that it never has time to catch anything and make you feel full. Is something's actually going wrong there. I thought it was just I had an addiction to food, but it's actually a little bit deeper than that.
Do you think that obesity is considered a disease in your mind? Do you think that would be true?
I do. I think there's a component to it, right? Like you have to, at some point, at least for me, I'll speak for myself here. Is I had to do some radical acceptance, right? I used to have this saying, is like I'm around for a good time, not a long time, blah blah blah. It's really when like a doctor gives you a notice saying, hey, you're essentially type 2 diabetic, your cholesterol's through the roof, your blood pressure's through the roof. You're going to start having some serious complications here. That changed my mindset. We all like to, my whole life I, tried to act like I was brave and stuff until, you're given some news that's not optimal, right? And then you really start thinking, okay, well, yeah, I'm not in my 20s anymore. I really got to start like paying attention to this stuff. Heart disease is happening earlier and earlier in people's lives, things of that nature, around sugars and things like that. So, messing with your gut microbiome. And that was my biggest thing with sugars. I could just eat it all day. It is definitely a disease, and I think it's caused by the lack of nutrients, somewhat in our foods from like an early age. And it just that hormone, or I believe it's like the vagus nerve, that actually like works on the stomach emptying portion, right? Like all of these things that we eat. And studying and asking my doctor about this, because I get into wormholes, right? I like to understand like why this happened, right? It's like how it
Yeah.
happened, why it happened. So like I've actively just made a change over the year to try to find something that's sustainable without going on some kind of like fad diet,
Yeah.
and getting stuck in that. I definitely don't eat the same things that I used to eat, but I don't long for things. I'm not forcing myself to suffer by not doing
Yeah.
this, that, the other. It was pretty eye opening. And my doctor now, they have a whole program based on GLP-1 at their practice, and they're doing some pretty cool things with full body composition, blood marker testing, and it's really been just interesting to go from pretty much type 2 diabetes to having like like an optimal A1C, cholesterol level, triglyceride level. I didn't even know what these things were a year ago. He had to I'm pretty sure my doctor hates me because I ask him like a million questions every time I go in. And I go in a lot. We're on like a first name basis now.
Oh, it's
So
so nice that you have that relationship and that they have actual knowledge about nutrition and have been able to support you on your journey and then extend that to other people. So that's really awesome. Okay, so we know what it was like for you before GLP-1s. What's been your biggest change? Is it the food noise?
I think that the biggest change from GLP-1, right? Like, I'm still on it, and I'll share what milligram I'm on. I haven't gone above 7.5. I haven't felt that it stopped working. I do have a little bit of food noise, but so the insulin resistance of
Hmm.
food, right? And this was something that we're kind of studying on me through one of the glucose monitors in the arm, is that my insulin resistance is much better now. So if I were to eat something heavy carbohydrate, so that would be maybe like a piece of bread or some like a rice bowl or something like that. With a GLP-1, your insulin resistance, which are these essentially huge spikes that if you eat rice, they can kind of just continue to happen and make too much insulin. And then that creates fat
Hmm.
stores in the body. They don't do that anymore. The
Wow.
medicine really, I mean, and that's why it was originally developed for, type 2 diabetes is that it gives a better insulin response. A type 2 diabetic is not having these highs and lows and waking up with like a high glucose at their fasting point in the morning. Really, it's more of like a scientific experience for me, is that like I can eat some of the same things on that medication, and the response to it is not massive, like weight gains that are like within weeks of doing it. Because you can attribute it, or I try to attribute it to the amount of like cardio exercise that I'm doing. But when I was pre GLP-1, I was doing arguably more for longer periods of time and still gaining weight. That kind of leads to imbalance somewhere,
Yeah.
right? Like that GLP-1 really, like there were some pros and cons to it, right? Like we all had to kind of weigh the risks associated with any medication. It's not just GLP-1s. In my opinion, it's a modern day Wellbutrin. Wellbutrin in the depression world changed the game. And GLP-1 is like, it's insane how efficient and well it works. It might not work for everybody. So I think that's like something to understand there. But like my personal experience with it is, I mean, it's life changing. Absolutely life changing.
That's what I've heard from just about every single person. And I think it's so incredible. And the world just needs to know because there's still like a lot of stigma and negativity. And on, I think that there's some fear mongering out there too. And I just, think that there could be a lot more compassion and empathy for people who are on these journeys, and more education for the people who have only heard bad things, right? So I'm just so grateful that you're sharing your story, because it's amazing. And so many people could benefit from this medication in a similar situation. Type 2 diabetes is just everywhere. And people who are afraid to take it might hear this story and think that maybe it wouldn't be scary to try after all, and maybe it would be worth giving it a chance. What do you think about uses for this medication outside of diabetes, for like PCOS and sleep apnea, weight loss? Do you think that people who have these diseases should be able to treat them with this medication?
If there's clinical research backing that these things are helping, it's actually funny you mentioned this. I have a friend that works with people going through addiction, and it is like been a game changer in the early stages of treating addiction. I mean, you think about it, right? Like I mean, it's treating a chemical imbalance or a hormonal imbalance within someone struggling with obesity. What can it do elsewhere? So yes, I do, and not only I keep up with all the news on this stuff. I'm not a doctor, but I do ask for like medical journals and studies and stuff to read through, and it's also for heart disease. Like it's reducing. There's like early studies saying that this stuff's reducing like heart disease in someone who might not even be obese by substantial numbers. It's a medication that I really do believe in, and it could really be a change the trajectory of someone's life and the length of
Yeah.
their life.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that they are in many cases life-saving. And I have heard those studies about addiction, and it's just incredible. And I am so excited to see where they go with that, how it develops.
Yeah, me too.
Have you felt like your relationships have changed since your journey started with anyone in your life?
No, well, there's been comments. There's been comments from some acquaintances. I wouldn't really call them friends. Be like, "Oh, you're getting too skinny," so on and so forth. And it's like too fat, too skinny. Common comments. Like the only person I allowed to ever say that to me was my grandmother, and she was never wrong in my eyes. So I just kind of let her have it. But you talk about like stigma and like relationships and stuff. I think probably more so is that people become more intrigued by these medications than anything. I've gotten a ton of praise for it. It's actually kind of refreshing. I've gotten like relationship with self is better than ever. I have like this self-confidence that I don't ever remember having. When you kind of like walk out, you just feel good. I don't really know how to explain it, but yeah, not too much negativity in my experience, other than, stuff you'll read on Instagram posts and people, making stupid comments, but that's always going to be the case. I don't think we'll ever get away from that.
That's true.
But yeah.
I was wondering if there's anything that you would say is different about the male experience. It seems like it's mostly women who are out there in the public taking it, right? And I feel like there's not as much of a male representation there. So I was curious if you had any experiences you would call unique.
I don't have any uniqueness to mine. Like I haven't gotten really any like backlash for it or anything per se, but I think that, it's been scrutinized in women a lot more. You see it a lot on the internet. Pretty much every time I open social media, there is something about it in there. But then again, the only people that I've met, other males, have been through like the Zepbound athletes Reddit, things of that nature, kind of chatting there.
I think it's amazing that you mentioned the social media posts and seeing that women are scrutinized for it more. Part of me wonders if it's because we see more women out there openly taking it. Do you think there are any men who are not? Do you think that there's a stigma on weight loss for men that is not there as much for women in general outside of GLP-1 use?
I think it's like a different, like it has a different feel, right? Like a lot of the like men's health stuff that I see men veer like maybe more so leaning towards like testosterone treatments versus like a GLP-1, and there may be some kind of correlation there with like somebody, I don't know, us as men, men sometimes they get their masculinity challenged, and TRT is much, injections sound much more manly than Zepbound or Ozempic, right? To each their own there, but I think that's more from like the men's health side that I stay in tune with that a lot. I try to look in on that front too, just to kind of see. I get interested in like what directions everybody going in, right? I know that mine has worked out well, but I think men are just generally, for whatever reason, just kind of scrutinized less. I don't know why that is, but yeah, at least in my experience, which it shouldn't be.
I think it's nice of you to say that for the females out there who have been scrutinized and struggling and whatnot. So, and it's so interesting to hear that because I'm not a man and I don't have that male perspective. So I really appreciate you sharing that because I've been super curious to know if it's much different. So thank you. Can I ask, are you on name brand medication then? You're on Zepbound?
I am currently, yes.
Do you think that there is anything wrong with taking compound medication if you lost coverage? I'm assuming you're covered. Do you have health insurance covering it?
I am fortunate enough to have health insurance covering it.
And if you lost your health insurance coverage, let's just say it was $1,000 out of pocket each month, what would you do? What would your next step be?
That's a good question. I think that in the early stage, at least for my level of comfort, and I can only speak for that, right? I'm a very anxious person. So when it comes to compounding, me personally, at that point, I was not comfortable with doing that. I was not comfortable with measuring out myself in injection because I was kind of the side effect scare of it. Now, that being said, do I think it's probably just as good? Absolutely. Most of the other medications that I take in my life, they're not name brand. They're generic versions or, some kind of compounded version of a medication, right? And they're just fine. But my limitations in my mind really kind of kept me from going that direction. Now losing health coverage, Zepbound Reddit has been like a really like eye-opening way to kind of like navigate some of these things. It's not perfect, but I know that Lily does coupons and things of that nature. I'm not sure about Ozempic. I've kind of just stayed with like the Zepbound Manjaro because that's what I'm taking. And I've looked at maybe some of the newer ones coming out on the market, but I don't know, to be honest. I mean, $1,000 a month is steep. And some people right now are paying that because that's the option that they have. But considering where I'm at health wise now, I probably would pay it in hopes that it became more affordable or get a compounded version and kind of learn how to administer it myself and kind of go that direction. Because I do think that the medication has, it's that good.
If you could not take this medication anymore, let's just say it is no longer available at all. What do you think would happen to your confidence, your health? I'm curious if you think that you'd be able to maintain, or if you think you would slide back into some of the old feelings that you had before.
I think I definitely would. Like I stated earlier, it's an imbalance in the biology of me and a lot of people, and it's science, right? When you're taking that medication, I guess I hate to use this term, but what a normal metabolism would be which we're now experiencing, right? I think it would slip and it would cause some depression. It would cause some slippage and going back to the old ways of doing things. It took a while to get my nutrition dialed in and figure out what works for me. But I think all those things aside, you can eat clean protein, you can be low sugar, but there's only so much you can do. Essentially, yeah, yes, I think I would. I don't know for certain. I haven't had to run into that fortunately yet, but it may happen.
Are you planning on taking this forever then?
That is a good question. I have this conversation a lot. My whole life, the less things you have to take in my mind, it's always been in my mind, the better, right? And I think that's most people. Everybody wants to feel like they have this kind of like balance, but that's not been the case for me for the last 8 years. I ran into some mental health, issues and stuff, which is pretty much going to be a lifelong thing. So it's a yes and no. I would be interested to see what tapering down would do. These conversations with my doctor, he's kind of, we can go either direction on it, right? The conversation there is that the medication has so many health benefits outside of obesity, which would be heart disease, things of that nature, right? We're just looking at it from like strictly heart health, liver function, all of the standard things that you would look for from your like yearly physical, right? As you get older, I could stay on it forever, from his point of view, and he makes sure to keep me up to date on that. And I think one of the important things to mention there are certain doctors' offices that are bound by insurance companies that sell certain things and don't sell other things, and you have to, if you're comfortable with your PCP throughout the course of this medication, whether you're seeing a PCP or whatever doctor you're seeing, that's kind of managing this, is like a level of trust there. My doctor is a private practice that does not take insurance, so they're not bound to anything. And for me personally, that set my mind personally at ease. So yeah, I don't feel like I'm being shuffled off to a company, which is important for some people, right? Like, it's a very real thing. And, to be able to work with him where he's just like, dude, this is crazy. When you walked in here like a year ago, it's like insane. Yeah, I think it's really important to just, as far as should you continue, should you taper off? It's obviously a personal choice, right? Like you're going to try whatever you want to do. And that kind of goes back to that comment. Nobody wants to be on, or maybe you don't want to be on medication forever. Forever is a big term. But I had to come to terms with it for other ailments or, issues with my health. So like, I'm okay with it. No, that's my personal opinion of it. I've gotten used to the shock now, and I'm just hoping one day they just it comes in a different form. Because I still flinch, like every time that once a week comes around. But yeah.
Okay, so what would you want someone who is afraid of trying this medication to know?
I would say it something like this, with every medication you take, there's always side effects, right? And it's like there's no way to really get around it. Things are scrutinized, antidepressants have box labels on them from the FDA, and I get it. It's scary. I was terrified, because it was right when these things are getting published. Yeah. So what I would say is if you work with a doctor and you express your concerns, a doctor that has experience with these medications, they can check certain levels of like your liver enzymes or pancreas function to kind of alleviate some of those things. Maybe it won't, right? I had to do some like radical acceptance, type of thing and just do it. I had a total meltdown. My wife was, and she's in the other room right now. She could tell you, and it was not just on the first shot, right? Kind of going up. 7.5 the first time I took it was kind of a wild ride. But at the end of the day, you have to kind of ask yourself, using an example, if you're 30 and you're pretty much type 2 diabetic, or you have significant markers in your heart health that are concerning, right? You have two things here that you have to kind of work on. There's a risk associated here for sure. There's well documented risks here, right, of what happens when all these things are high. You have to kind of practice radical acceptance and work with a doctor on your anxiety about it and start slow. I think maybe that's probably one of the benefits of the compounded version of this, is that you can take smaller doses and ease into things, right? And that creates less anxiety. There's horror stories for everything, but like do it at your own pace. It's not like a race to the end. It's to find something sustainable. I mean, I was anxious that at the time too, when I was given the two options, that I might have significant heart failure in the next 5 years. I'm relatively, I say relatively young, I'm in my mid-30s, right? And it's like, that's pretty concerning to hear. So make a pros and cons list. And if you're I'm a very science analytical minded person, you have to do a pros and cons list and kind of like work through that and just do research. Everybody's different, right? I've seen people that will jump right in, like no hesitation at all. It's like, for me, it took a long time to get comfortable with the idea, but it's been great thus far. And I still try to hold on to that anxiety and still have that radical acceptance to this day. So yeah, that's the direction I would go with that.
I think that's really inspiring. I know I was scared the first time I took it too, and you're absolutely right. I'm on compound myself, and I have taken the tiniest baby steps because I've been afraid of having side effects that were super uncomfortable. So I think it's amazing that you're still on 7.5. And you're right, there does seem to be some push for some people to just race to the end, like get to that 30 level and then I don't know what the plan is after that, pushing that hard, but I think you're absolutely right. Taking baby steps and, going at your body's own pace definitely makes a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I've learned is that the body has to have time to adjust. Getting your nutrients in daily will, whether that be from diet, what you're actually consuming, because this medication hits some people a lot harder than others, especially with appetite suppression. But, making sure that you're getting your proteins, fats, B vitamins. I do supplements and I do a lot of like smoothies and stuff. Even though I have a healthy appetite now, like I just got used to doing it because it's kind of like easier to do, right? And then keep moving along.
Smoothies are good. I love
Yeah,
smoothies right now.
yeah, I do too.
I got a new blender. I've been blending up everything.
Oh yeah, it's great. It's great.
All right, last question. What was your motivation for coming on this podcast, and what would you like to accomplish with sharing your story?
My motivation to come on the podcast was one, to just kind of share a journey, right? Like, because I think when I was going through this, there are GLP-1 podcasts out there, episodes from endocrinologists and things. So there's a very scientific point, but not like a personal experience point. So I kind of maybe wanted to share with some people about anxiety. I know a ton of people feel anxiety. That the Zepbound Reddit is like full of questions that we all at one point asked ourselves some part of the journey, right? So that, from an athletic standpoint, was another one. So I post in Zepbound athletes quite a bit. There's a lot of people that have been doing a lot of sports that they've loved for a long period of time, but my abilities and my outdoor activities are just drastically different. knee joint problems, back pain. Like there's all these other factors, right? Of just being able to do more for longer from like an athletic standpoint, whether it be biking, running, hiking. And I think that goes to anybody too, right? Like there's probably people out there that are not currently doing athletic sports or activities that throughout this journey they might start. So it makes a big difference. Riding a bike at 300 pounds versus riding a bike at like 160 pounds, huge difference. My body's much less angry with me every time I like get through the door. It's been great from that standpoint. And then also kind of just like breaking the stigma. Like my first thought that comes to my mind, I don't know if I can, use a cuss word on the podcast, but
Go ahead.
yeah, when it comes to other people, who gives a shit? Like, at the end of the day, like stay here within yourself, work with the people around you, and like try to limit the external sources and stressors that like everyone has an opinion of everything, right? We live in this world, and that will never change. It's just part of the human experience, right? And now we have it at our fingertips where anybody can post their stupid opinion online, but they have no rule over what you do in your life. Try hard to not let them like have any like emotional pull on you, because this could be a game changer for you. This could really change your life. So that would be like my message out there is just this is a personal journey, right? Definitely. Yeah. Do your research, do all the things, kind of go into like recapping, do your research, work with somebody you trust, stay within a support group of people that like are like-minded, reduce the external stupidity, and give it a shot. That would be my whole thing. It's like, what do you got to lose at this point?
That's a really good point. What do you have to lose? Especially when you're sick. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? When you're sick or you've suffered and you've tried and failed 1,000 times or succeeded and then gone back to where you ended up coming from sometimes. So I know what you mean. I can't thank you enough for sharing your story today. This is my first interview with a real person, so you are just such a hero for coming on here and sharing your story and for your motivation to come on here. That's the whole reason why we started this podcast, was so that we could share community stories from real people like yourself and have something there out there for people to relate to so that they could go find out that they're not alone. So thank you so much. You're an incredible person, and I'm so glad that you had such a great journey and that you could come and share it with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you reaching out, and I was pretty stoked to be here. So yeah, no, thank you again. I do appreciate it.
That's awesome. Okay, so the last question. Can I use a picture of you for the podcast episode? Like, it doesn't have to be a before and after. It could just be anything you want, or even a picture of your dog if you're not comfortable with your face out there,
I
just to
think
make it
this
a
might be
more
the first
relatable.
time in my life that I am comfortable with my face being out there. So sure, yeah, no issue
That
there.
is so true. I know what you mean. There's so much less anxiety with putting your face out there, right? And I almost regret not taking more pictures of myself before, because now I feel just so much more comfortable.
Oh yeah.
Did you do that? Do you feel that way?
I have a lot of pictures before, but now I'll be completely honest. I'm feeling myself a little bit these days. I'm like, I try to get dressed up a little nicer than I used to, and I mean, when it comes down to like the things, the accomplishments you get to, you hit these milestones. Your confidence and like internal, mental well-being. For me, it's been much better. So now I'm smiling more in pictures and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I love that.